What is up, guys? Welcome on back to the news with TK and some breaking news here. We talked about this before we went into the weekend that Letitia James could be facing some sort of arrest or perp rock on Monday. And according to multiple sources, it looks like the FBI has been to her office as well as a home listed in all of this madness in Virginia. Oops. Now, what is up, guys? Welcome on back to the news with TK. Now, we've talked about this in detail. I actually went over everything in terms of the documents to everything else concerning Letitia James and the reported mortgage fraud and issues on documents that were put in. And to clarify a few things, I've seen some of the comments. I've seen people say, oh, well, this has to do with stuff from 20 years ago. Yes, while that stuff is in there, the stuff that she could possibly be charged with happens to deal with a home purchase in Virginia a month before the trial against the current president for basically the same thing. What I mean there is she charged the current president, Donald Trump, with, inappropriately evaluating or, putting false values on properties to get favorable loan terms from banks. Even though all of those loans had been repaid, the banks never went to the state to complain. The state just manufactured these charges. Well, in this case, what the attorney general did, Letitia James, is a little different. She claimed that she was a resident or going to be a resident in this house in Arlington, Virginia, on a notarized form. I've seen all of the comments of, well, earlier in the paperwork, when they were doing the deal or the offer sheet, it says that they would not be a resident. That part doesn't matter. The part that matters is the part that you sign and notarize that sets your interest rate and goes through the title company for the mortgage. That is the part that matters. I've seen the bickering and the back and forth between different people in our comment section as well, saying, well, she did say she wasn't going to be on the paperwork. No, sorry. That doesn't pass the smell test. The document that matters is the one that is the legal binding document that is signed and notarized that says she would be. But even beyond that, we get to her home in Brooklyn, New York, which is a 5-unit home, which would be more classified as commercial as opposed to a 4, which would be more residential, and listing it as a 4-unit home with the excuse of, well, we never used the basement anyway. That's not an excuse. That's not going to fly. It's just not. It's not going to fly. And it's the reason why I think we're seeing what we're seeing today. I don't know what happened at the house in Virginia today. I'm sure it will come out if Kash Patel's FBI issues a statement. I don't know if they went to request documents or other items from Letitia James at her office in New York today, but I do know that the FBI was at her office, here's the thing. I've had people say, oh, well, the FBI could have been at her office for normal causes of work. That is true. Usually you don't have a gang of agents show up to an attorney general's office for regular work. That could be the case. I'm not saying it's not. It could be the case that they showed up there because of regular stuff that was going on between the Attorney General's office and the FBI. Maybe. But that wouldn't be the case for the home in Virginia. So, be that as it may, that's where we're at. And then we have the auditor or the person, the forensic accountant that has been destroying any aspect of the legacy media's, oh, this is overblown, this is not, nothing's going to happen. Wrong. I don't think that's the case at all. If nothing was going to happen, if Letitia James did not expect that she would have any kind of exposure at all, she wouldn't have hired a massive criminal defense attorney who has experience in dealing with government matters, being it was Hunter Biden's attorney, to write a letter to say that this is just political retribution, even if she broke the law. Sorry. But anywho's, I want to roll this clip right here from the forensic accountant who got into detail. So for everybody that's like, oh, well, this happened, but this didn't happen and this happened. No. This is very simple. It is broken down in detail, and she's going to have to address why these things happened and has not also provided any excuse for why these things happened. And I think it's one of the reasons, like I said, we saw the FBI at her office and this home today. But let me roll this clip.
It's not the Trump administration at war with Tish James. It's me bringing her to accountability and justice. This is what I do. I love to solve puzzles. I am not part of the Trump administration, and I don't give a what people say about the Trump administration being at war with Tish James. This is me, Sammy Antar, former Crazy Eddie CFO, convicted felon, now a forensic accounting investigator. That's what I do now, and I like doing what I do. I like solving puzzles. Everything that I've written about, everything that I've spoken about is in the public record. I don't know how the wheels of justice will turn. And to be frank, I don't care as long as I'm right. Okay? If they fail to convict her, it's their humiliation and their embarrassment. It's not mine, because I documented everything that I did. And I stand by everything I did. I did this on my own time, my own dime. I took all kinds of risks doing it, from retaliation to libel risk to all reputational risk. I took all kinds of risks. In 2023, August of 2023, Letitia James purchased another property in Norfolk, Virginia, 604 Sterling Street. Now, on that property, there was a mortgage that she needed to do to finance that property. The Trump trial was coming up. This is August 2023. The Trump trial was in September 2023. So she signed a power of attorney appointing her relative to close on the property. Now, in the power of attorney, it says, these are her words, notarized, and they're in the property records. I hereby declare that I intend to occupy this property as my primary residence. Her words. Now, she's moving to Virginia while she's doing the Trump case. First of all, if you move to Virginia, you're automatically out of office. The second part of it is her relative subsequently closed on the property. She gave the relative full power of attorney. But the mortgage language says that her and her relative have to occupy that property as their primary residence, okay, within 60 days. At least Tish James never did. As far as the other relative, I don't know, but that other relative did not file for a homestead exemption, which is a protection afforded to homeowners in Virginia from creditors. In either case, both had to occupy that property, which they didn't. This allowed her to con the lenders into getting favorable terms based on the fact that the two borrowers together were going to occupy that property as their primary residence. What happened was, on every mortgage since 2001 to 2021, she has claimed that the property has 4 or less units. Okay, on every mortgage, her signature, not mine. The certificate of occupancy that exists today and existed when she signed those mortgages says it's supposed to be 5 units. You get favorable mortgage terms when it's 1 or 4 units, because it's considered residential, versus 5 or more units, which is considered commercial. Now, somebody had complained, I don't know if it was one or several individuals, but there were about 4 or 5 complaints on the DOB's website saying that, she's not conforming to the certificate of occupancy.
So like I said, she is facing a ton of issues, to say the least. And do we see a perp walk, before end of business today or tomorrow? Maybe. It could also be negotiated with her attorney not to do that. If I am the Trump administration, though, I'm making her get perp walked after all of the crap that her office would have put me through. And I know that might come across as petty, but that's what we do here. It would be petty, but I would perp walk the crap out of her, just so she can understand how that feels and understand that you don't throw stones in a glass house. You can't go after your political opponents with trumped up charges, pun intended, and then expect to get some kind of sympathy when you get caught. Doesn't work that way. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you think she is charged this week? Do you think we see a case get prosecuted or an arrest made this week with Letitia James? I think, and this is just from what I'm seeing, when the FBI shows up somewhere and they start taking documents or computers or doing other stuff, usually when that happens, we're getting close to a point where somebody's going to get arrested. But that's just me. Anyways, give the video a big thumbs up if you like what I do. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And as always, stay petty, my friends.